Hello and welcome to the Practical Leadership Podcast, where I interview great leaders and try to extract their wisdom and experience for you to learn from and hopefully avoid making their mistakes. Check out practical-leadership.academy because you want to help your new managers succeed with hybrid or remote working. Judy Wairimu, thank you so much indeed for joining me today. I mean, we were talking previously, you came out with basically this litany of wisdom you shared with me when we spoke last time. You're talking about overcoming barriers to excellence, empowering the goals of other people as part of that journey, being able to and knowing how to ask other people for support and advice on your journey, and even asking them to hold you accountable to keep you going.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit of your journey to achieving this wisdom? Where did you get to? Where have you come from? What's going on?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much, Paul, for inviting me. I think these are absolutely exciting conversations to have that sometimes we don't stop to reflect, but it's always good to hear this thought process and kind of share across for different people what they've experienced. I'd say when it comes to leadership, for me, I look at it straight from how I grew up. And I like to say that I'm a product of the individuals that have worked hard to get me to where I am. I've had very influential people in my life, starting from my parents, specifically my father, who has taken a lot of time to coach and mentor me. Not necessarily on per se certain jobs, but more on ethics, aspects on leadership, aspects on how to influence and some of the challenges that you'd face. He would literally come to me with his challenges at work, and we would role play. We would actually role play different situations that could emerge from that. So, and I've had multiple mentors in my life who have given me an inlet into their leadership style and their experiences, and I've gotten to learn a lot. So a lot of what I've gone through has actually come from input from different individuals, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And so,
sorry, Judy, I never do this. I have to apologize. I'm interrupting you because I need to ask you, how old were you when your dad was role-playing with you? Because I've got a young daughter as well.
Yeah.
How old were you?
10 years old. 10 years old. 10 years old. We would play Office. We would play. For me, it just sounded like a game. But, when I do retrospect a lot of these things, and I do discuss with my dad about this, and he'll tell me, I was having a hard time at work. I was trying to determine if I'm going to leave my job because I didn't have a supportive manager. And so I was trying to find out different perspectives. So I don't think we need to look at it so much in the sense of the intricacies of the job, but it's the aspects of the human relations and the interpersonal connections that are so important to learn from an early age, because they're tools that you evolve with and that you build and finesse as you go on.
That's fabulous. 10 years old.
Make it fun. Make it fun.
Well, it
definitely can.
That's magnificent. Sorry, I interrupted you in full flow there. It was magnificent, but I really just wanted to know. I mean, because I can imagine, you've inspired me there. I can imagine actually having or trying to have these conversations with my kids, and I'm doing all of this stuff that I do with a view to trying to help, help the planet upskill and be ready for my two when eventually they come into the world of work, right?
Yes.
I've never actually thought of doing something with them now.
Give it a try, Paul. Give it a try. You'll be surprised how much they actually can simplify problems for you. They can put some things in very interesting context. Try it.
Fantastic. So you're the product of many mentors, I think.
Yes.
Many opportunities.
Yes. I'm the product of many mentors. And what I can say, and from our last discussion, I do seek out to read different aspects that kind of help me to reflect on my areas, and specifically the 5 areas that I have seen and have tried to apply. So we talked about last time the idea of overemphasizing personal goals, and how as a leader you need to get to a point where you are actually empowering others to achieve their goals in order for you to achieve yours. And it is not to say that you do not have, financial aspirations, you do not have certain ambitions. Those are very clear. But if you are so shielded by or so jaded by the idea of how your personal goals need to come to life, then you cannot be able to see how actually you can bring them up by bringing other people with you or helping other people along the way in order to be able to achieve your goals. So this has been very important for me, especially very early when I started leading teams, because I would have some teams who were not even direct reportees to me, but I needed to get a certain task or activity done. So how do you influence individuals without having direct control over them? So you had to start to align interests. You had to start to really lean in and listen and be willing to solve their problems. And when you solve their problems, you literally see the transformation where you can ask for anything and the people will follow you. They will give it to you within the extent that they're able to. And it creates as well a sense of loyalty. You start to build a network of people who are very loyal to you because they have worked with you and they can trust, not necessarily the quality of your work, it's not about that, but they can trust your word. That when you do say something, you will follow through. When you do say no, you mean no. When you do say you will look into it, you will look into it. When you do say that you will get back to us by a certain time, you do get back to us at a certain time. And those small things we might not consider that important for yourself or the other person is absolutely critical. So sometimes let's not overemphasize our personal goals. Let's lean in and let's find out what does the other person need to succeed.
So building trust by doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. And funny enough, Paul, if you go to a bunch of middle school students and you ask them this is very obvious, be like, yeah, it's a very obvious thing, but it's not as practical when we actually come to applying it, because we are so into our minds and into our worlds and what we want to achieve and what we must get, that sometimes we just don't do it.
Marvelous. All right, you said 5 things. Number 1.
That's number 1.
Overemphasize your own goals.
Yeah.
Deal with the others. Help other people. Empower other people to meet their goals and build trust in the process. I love that. All right. Number 2. Come on.
Number 2. Protecting your own image, your own public image too much. And I'm guilty of this one.
The ego is... Yeah.
I'm guilty of this one. I remember my very first real manager meeting that I was invited to, and I was new to my company, and I was very excited and I was green and had all kinds of ideas. And my organization tended to use a lot of acronyms of SPSSs, and then we were going to ask DXBV to then do XY, and everybody seemed so sure of themselves that somehow we were all speaking the same language. And I couldn't ask a question because I felt like, everybody knows. Clearly, I'll be the only one that doesn't know, right? Only after the meeting to kind of do a debrief with one of my colleagues and say, okay, so what exactly are we doing? And he wasn't clear either. And then we all kind of looked foolish because we were not quite clear exactly what was to be done after, right? And it also sometimes this requires one person to ask, to give courage to the others to do the same. And there's nothing wrong, we think it's as bad, we think it's really crazy, but you know what? It's actually not as bad as we think. You just kind of have to make sort of like muscle memory to just ask someone, okay, hold up, pause, one step back. What does that mean? Explain to me a little bit more. Why do we do it the way we do it? I don't understand, So that has taken a while for me to deal with. And I would say part of the reason I understand is as well, when you're coming in on a cultural perspective, at least from my part of the world. So I operate across Africa and Middle East. And you will find that the status of women and women of color as well might not necessarily, in certain professional and technology landscape, might not necessarily be that well respected. And so when you come in from this position, you are tired of having to always explain or justify why you are in the room. And therefore, there is a certain fear that if you do ask a question, then it's perhaps predispose people to think that you don't know when you shouldn't be in the room, you see. I have had leaders who have been very conscious of this, and I don't know whether they've done it because they're aware or it's because they're just such natural leaders. But I have had leaders in the room who then will pose the question as if it is themselves who do not know, because they do understand the environment and the context of the individuals they have. And I aspire to be a leader like that, whereby I'm so in tune to the individuals that I have in my team that I know possible areas that I can preempt. And so I've had managers who say, please explain to us that a little bit more. Or I've noticed that, Judy, you've been a bit quiet on this topic. Would really want to hear what your thoughts are here, right? So I love when leaders are able to do that. And I aspire to be a leader who can be able to actually create that forum of inclusivity for the people in the room who I know might be in a position where they cannot speak out.
It's the inclusivity side of diversity. We are all caught up in the demographic side of diversity, whether you're male, female, black, white, whatever. And fine, okay, that's a thing. It's the contents. It's your background, your experience, that, and your knowledge. That's the thing. And bringing that out, making that, including that, or including the lack of that into the conversation. If you're there, part of this team, and you don't have that knowledge that we all assume, that in itself is valuable. It's telling us that we're speaking gibberish, jargon. It's not clear. It's not simple as it should be. Yeah. It takes a great deal of courage, though. Doing that, not protecting your ego, takes a great deal of courage. Being the one who says, I don't know. What is an accrual exactly? Whatever it is.
It definitely does take a lot of courage. And I sometimes also go back to elements about how we reflect about ourselves. Some people will bring spirituality into it. You definitely can. It's about that self-reflection and that self-interrogation as well, where you get to a point where you realize that you can never know everything and that you can never control everything and that it is okay. And therefore, your role as an individual is to be able to immerse yourself and expose yourself and connect with individuals who can be able to give you that extra mile. So it's really a psychological aspect. Of course, there are social aspects to it as well, as you rightly mentioned, on inclusivity and other areas that come into play. But on a very personal level, it's getting to the point where I am okay without knowing everything, and I am okay relying on others. And that has been a journey itself. It is not something that I can tell you that you understand and you get it by tomorrow. I mean, depending on the different context, I have to catch myself sometimes trying to falling into that particular issue. So yeah, it's a journey.
It's in part, what is it? It's the serenity prayer, I think it's called. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
To know the difference, yes.
That's it. The wisdom to know the difference. I like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I understand. I have a much better appreciation as to why spirituality becomes very, very important in someone's life. I understand why.
It's, I mean, I think a lot of most faiths, the core of most faiths is self-knowledge. It's self-knowledge, self-understanding, because you can't experience the might of the spirit or whatever your choice is without actually having a first clue of who you are and what you're all about. So it's a self-reflection is the first step to the journey of.
Exactly. Yeah. The third thing is, the third thing that I've had to also reflect on was not turning my competitors into enemies, because competitors can be in so many different ways. It can be the classical competitor in terms of a corporate setting and your counterpart in another corporate. It could be that, or it could be just somebody in your team who challenges you and pushes you, right? And we tend, again, because of the self-preservation, we can tend to interpret a challenge as a threat, and therefore miss out on the opportunity to connect and to lean in to the people. And it's also a very two-dimensional way of looking at situations, because we want to know, is it a threat? Is it a friend? It's too absolute. Yet we do know that there are many nuances, or there are many areas, there are many things that can fall in the gray area of how you interact with competitors or perceived competitors, I'd say. And so sometimes I have taken the time whereby when I do meet someone within my network who I would say pushes me, or at least seems to compete with me, I first look at my mindset of, can I presume they wish me well? Let's start there. I walk into a room and presume that people want me to succeed. They wish me well and they want me to succeed. So I want to come in with a mindset of positivity, first of all. And then I want to understand. What is this person really saying? Because you could be completely wrong yourself. You could be completely off base. This person might actually be sharing very good insights that could be put in place, but because we are so in love with our ideas, or we are so far along in a certain project, we're not able to listen. We're in a fearful situation. We're fearing losing our jobs or looking silly. So this two-dimensional aspect of looking at competitors, I think, really clouds the judgment. And so, positive mindset, lean in. What is this person really saying? And then, which leads to my fourth point, is involving other people in your retrospection, because you don't want to do some of these things alone. Because sometimes you can hear what your competitor is saying, but you're not able to properly interpret it, because for whatever reason, I don't know, because you're in fear of losing your job or something. But you're doing this self-reflection alone. You're having this conversation alone only. And I would really guard against that. I'd say, bring people you trust into these conversations. I started something interesting that someone recommended is I hold a dinner, I cook a nice meal, and then I invite some of my friends, some of my workmates, people I trust together. And the idea is I share what it is that I'm struggling with, right? Without sharing too much, if it's any personal details, but just share, what am I struggling with? I have this situation at work. I'm not able to inspire people. Productivity levels have dropped. I'm not able to speak to this other department. We're not in sync. It's giving me a heartache, and I just don't know how else to do. I'm being criticized in this way or that way. What do you think? And so you get this diverse feedback from individuals who are even outside of your context, who can then, give you a more independent view of what they think can be done. So I'd say, so don't turn competitors into enemies, and don't walk this journey alone.
I love you said, bring people, you cook them a nice meal. Bring people into your context for advice. There's a lovely word when you think about the word company. And in the company of somebody, you have companions. And the root of it comes from with bread, compan, and it's
Yes.
people that we break bread with and share
Oh,
meals with.
I'm definitely using that, Paul. I'm
Right?
using that one for my next one. That's a
Companion,
good
company.
compan.
So
Yes.
let's eat together. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do with the people I work
Yeah.
with and my friends. You know, I used to say that you didn't have to like the people you worked with, but you did have to love them and you had to cherish them and take care of them and be responsible for them.
Yes.
But actually, the older I get, no, I want to break bread with the people I work with.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
That's very true.
Company.
And you know what? It's actually not as bad as we think. You
No.
know, there's a perception, we think, oh, you know, I spent so much time with them already. I just want to get it all done. I mean, fine, yeah, you could say that, but there could be one or two people there that you could actually get a bit closer, you know. But I've seen the power of meals work. Food works.
For interviews as well, it's great. If you're not sure about somebody, or well, you are sure, but you wouldn't do it. Yeah, if you're sure about somebody, but you want to be really sure, you go for dinner with them and see how they
Yeah,
behave. Do they have
yeah,
good table manners? Good?
yeah.
No, then they're not coming. Sorry, you don't use that knife like that. You're gone.
You're gone. The
Uh,
food works, and it removes the formality, and it allows people to be a little bit more vulnerable and share a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
The last piece, which I must say I am still working on, is waiting for permission. And let me explain what I mean here.
Yeah.
So you know, when you're a leader, you have the power that you have within the position that you're in. But even more importantly is the influence that you can command without that position. And many people tend to think that this aspect of influence is predominantly tied to a title and therefore subsequently the higher you move in your corporate or the more established you become in your specialist area and more recognized you are, then you think that then you have more influence. So you might have power, but not necessarily more influence. And differentiating the two has been quite difficult for me because sometimes I would feel like I have no authority to request and to ask for certain changes in certain ways that we run our business, because I would feel I'm interfering too much in that person's other docket. Despite, of course, understanding as a professional that my role and what I have been hired to do is to be able to advance a certain criteria or certain KPIs that I must meet in a certain way. But I realized you can get much more from the influence than the power itself. And I've seen people in my team very successful in doing that. And you do not necessarily have to have the authority, the formal authority for it. So we tend to, patience is a good thing. It's good to keep your head low and, get in the grants and work hard and do that. It's fantastic. Do it. But if you do it for too long, expecting someone to pat you on the shoulder, expecting for someone to recognize your effort, sometimes it doesn't come like that. You have to influence people around you, and you must be able to get them on your side in a manner that you're not using your apparent power. Because once you use power, you lose it, right? Really, if you think about it, once you use your power, once you have to use your power, you lose your power. Because then people notice and people see that you are only able to move this because you are the boss. But I want you to move this and I want you to do things not because only I'm the boss, but because you understand the vision and you see what is in it for yourself in this vision. And therefore, you will walk this journey with me no matter how difficult it gets. And this is a philosophy even outside the corporate, in family, I don't know about you, Paul, but in my family, we're a big family. It's a huge extended family. We have all kinds of issues to deal with.
What family doesn't?
We're very many. And sometimes you find that we have an approach of where the oldest person or whoever has the apparent authority gets to say much. But where I have seen some of the most influential people are the ones who can be able to just speak, give ideas, lead from the front, yet they're just a random guy at the side, but people listen. And they listen because they trust you. And they trust you because you have a track record. So instead of, sitting back a little bit, especially for, I'd say, young managers or people who are just getting into mid their career, I'd say take some serious time considering within your workplace or within your structures, how can you lead, how can you influence without waiting to be given some kind of permission or authority to do it.
I love that. The real power comes from that what you've got from other people. Other people can grant you that power. Yes, of course, you have the delegated authority. Yes, you have titles and all that. But as you said, it's. I think the power to affect change comes from the trust you have with people, your track record, as you said. It's a good way of doing it. Do you think this idea of influence as well, especially in the professional life, do you think it can be a boy-girl thing? Because there's some good reporting and statistics on job applications, and your average man will apply for a job that he's maybe like 5% qualified for, but your average woman apparently wants to be 95% qualified.
Yeah.
So that's almost this. You're waiting for permission. You're waiting for the pat in the back. You're waiting for somebody to come and say, yes, you are ready for this. Yes, you should do this.
Yeah. Whereas, it's true. And it is the social aspects of, or the social realities that we face. And there's small things we can do. For example, I do see nowadays some job descriptions will write there at the bottom and say, and put the statistics of the number of women and men who apply, and then it will say, we particularly encourage a woman to apply for this role. Some of them will go to that extent of writing that, to, in case you were thinking you were not good enough, you better try, right?
I like that. And that's not what do you call it? What's the negative thing? It's like the positive discrimination. I don't like saying, oh, we're only going to have a woman applying for this. And I said, well, no, you want the best people applying for this.
You want the best people.
No reason that you can't say, and you might be one of the best ones. So
and you might be one of them. Yeah. Put the statistics there and say, some people are thinking they can't do this because if you think you can't do this because you don't meet 100% of the requirements, we would encourage you to still apply, So I've seen some people do that. And, it's actually a very tough one because you'll find as well when we talk about putting women in boards, and there are different studies that have been shown, you put one woman in a board and productivity drops. Then you put a second woman in the same board, and then productivity still doesn't improve. But you have to put the third woman for you to start to see the impact of that, and then you see productivity and profitability actually rise, and you ask yourself why. I think there definitely are clear social issues that we have. The good thing is that many organizations today are aware. The problem is perhaps they're not aware of what to do about it. I think there's a lot of trial and error that different organizations have put in place. Personally, what I try to do is spend a bit more time and a bit more emphasis trying to seek out individuals who I know, or at least I know within our area might necessarily not be included. And so I will try personally to do a bit of coaching there. Within my teams, I will set challenges. I will say, we've got a special project here. It's coming up, and I'd like you to take it up, and I'd like you to take the lead. Like, just this is what's available. Try it out. I think it's constant reinforcement that has to be done. Just a bit of encouragement, and it starts from a very young age. And we consistently do this until we start to see some changes. incremental changes.
Kaizen, 1% better every day.
1% better.
Oh, wonderful. What are you working on at present?
So right now, so I'm part of a team called Tech for Social Impact at Microsoft, and we are a very interesting team across the world, but I cover the Africa region. And we basically tackle the hardest problems that we have in our region to do with social impact and how can technology be used to help this. So one of the key things that we're trying to do right now is we are doing massive technical skilling for individuals within the Africa continent because we want to be able to build capacity, but at the same time, we want to build relevant skills or context-specific skills that people can be able to build a livelihood on. And it is actually a very interesting journey because you find that it's not enough to say that the content is there and it's free, but you have to think a step further. How do you access this? You know, you find that the inequalities we have is that folks don't have devices, don't have laptops, don't have mobile phones, you know, or if you have a mobile phone, it's not a smartphone, or if you have a smartphone, you can't afford the cost of data, or if you can't afford the cost of data, there's no connectivity in your area. So you find this aspect of saying we want to build skills among people tells you that we need to take a couple steps closer to the people to realize the pains and the journeys that they go through. And so things that you can presume are easy to do are actually much more systemic. So that's what I'm working on right now. How do we build very strong technical skills for African youth for the future? It's very exciting and rewarding. And I think these are the engagements that I think as more corporates and individuals get into, not only have a social impact, but also have an economic impact, because then you have more skilled people who can then create forms of employment and entrepreneurship that then be able to create economic activities for a wider range of individuals. So that's in short what's happening right now.
And harnessing the innovation of an entire continent.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What are you reading? What are you reading or listening to? Your podcasts or?
Yes, I'm actually reading a book suggested by Camiel, Camiel, your friend,
Yes.
and it's called Rationality by Steven Pinker. Rationality,
Steven Pinker,
what it is, why it seems scarce, and why it matters. You know, we're in such an age where information is so easily available, and there is so much happening at the same time. You can never quite know what's true and what isn't. And it's kind of some form of, there's a little bit of madness, I'd say, you know, because we are pushed with so much information. It's so hard to discern what is where, and you don't know what is, you don't know what stands where. And what I particularly like about this book is because it starts to remind us, uses a lot of numbers, statistics to try and show us that the world is in a better place than where we were. However, of course, there are certain things that we have to deal with, such as climate change. But then it starts to make you understand the psychology as to why there is such inactivity or inaction from people, despite knowing these issues are a problem. And it makes you really question how you reason out your problems or how you reason out your issues where you are. So I love this book. I'm still at the beginning stages, but it raises a lot of questions about why do we think the way we do? What is this dissonance in our minds?
Rationality.
So,
I like
rationality and why it matters.
Good. What would you like to thank the young Judy for doing?
Lots of things. The young Judy was full of such dreams and ambitions. sometimes I wish I could go into that idealistic Judy back in the days, because I had so much excitement about the future and the positivity on it. And it really drove my confidence to know that, you know what, I'm destined for something. So for something good, something big. I always had that perception. And of course, with life, you can get a bit jaded and reality sinks in, and you start to see the realness of the world, and a little bit of that idealism is shed away. But I would then challenge the new Judy or the older Judy to remember why she was so excited, and to remember why she was so idealistic to begin with, right? Not to lose that, because I think in general, in our quest to as we're older and we're experienced, we tend to be too bogged up, too pessimistic sometimes. And so I would challenge the older Judy and many other Judys to go back to a bit idealistic. It's good, let's dream of something better. We can always do that.
It's marvelous. Bring the idealism back. And then lastly, as we wrap up, Judy, what are your coordinates? Where can people find you?
Yes. So you can definitely chat to me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place. I have an Instagram account, but I use it mostly for shopping, so I don't think you get much of a response from me there. But you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I don't know my LinkedIn offhand. I would need to check.
Well, we'll find it and I'll put it into the notes in the podcast. You can
put it there. But that's probably the best place to reach me. Send me a message. I'd love to hear what your journey is or has been as a young manager, or how you are trying to navigate that aspect of your life as well. And I'm happy to chat.
Judy Wairimu, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you so much, Paul. This is actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining me today. Your homework is to leave your 5-star review, and please, any comments you have, you really help me to improve every day, and it also helps people to discover me online. You should check out practical-leadership.academy, because you want to help your new managers succeed with hybrid or remote working.